Hola. Hello. Let me tell you guys. Two things. One, we recorded this video a couple weeks ago. I go to put it on the computer. My SD card got corrupted. And when I tell you that this was one of the hardest videos that we have ever filmed, not because it's a lot, but because it's in a different language, we struggled. This is 8 pages.
Which is not that many.
No, Jeffrey Dahmer was like 20 pages. Gacy was like 19 pages. This is 8 pages, and it was almost a 2-hour long video.
We had to keep stopping to Google the pronunciation of things.
And laugh at how stupid we were. Yeah. And then 2, this has quite literally been the worst week of my life. There's a lot going on. But here we are. We are here today. It's like noon 45.
We're gathered here today
in memorial of Abby's hopes and dreams down the drain.
It was a good thing that the video that got corrupted was one that we could redo, but also did it have to be this one specifically that we struggled so hard with? So maybe it'll be better the second time around, but...
No, it won't.
Christ.
Because we already forget some of the pronunciations.
Oh yeah, my memory wiped clean just like that card as soon as I left here.
So today, another episode of Serial Killer Monthly. It is Elizabeth Bathory. It's spelled Bathory, but wherever she's from, it's pronounced Bathory. No, Battery. Like a battery. I'm already stressed out.
And we only have a few serial killers left.
Yeah.
After this one.
I think we have, what, 3? And she was known as the Blood Countess. Throughout this video, we call her Elizabeth, not Bathory, whatever it is. So, Elizabeth, that's her. Not Bethany.
Yeah, she was like, I think we're gonna do Elizabeth next.
Because this is my pick, so I was like picking and letting her know.
And then I was like, alright, well, you'll probably have to tell me what Bethany's name was again so I can look her up, and then I'll... And she's like, well, first of all, if you look up Bethany the serial killer, you're not gonna find anything because her name's Elizabeth. And I was like, are you sure? I swear you said Bethany.
And the funniest part was there was like a 5-minute gap between that, because we communicate through Snapchat video, so I sent her a video and she literally responded like 5 minutes later, and I was like, you really forgot her name already? I think that was like foreshadowing how bad this video was gonna be. She was born on August 7th, 1560 on a family estate in Nervator? I don't know.
Something like that.
In Royal Hungary. Hungary. Her childhood was spent at Essid Castle, so she lived in a castle. Her father was Baron George VI Bathory of the Essid branch of the family. He was the brother of Andrew Bonaventura Bathory, voivode of Transylvania. So there's a lot going on. And her mom was Baroness Anna Bathory, daughter of Stephen Bathory of Sommelier. Don't know if I said that right. Elizabeth was raised as a Calvinist Protestant. While she was growing up, she learned Latin, Hungarian, German, and Greek. Because she was born into a very noble family, she had a very prominent social rank, so she was way up here, everybody else way down here. Good for you. Must be nice. And as a child, she had seizures and would have these violent moods, and she would have these painful migraines. This could have been caused by epilepsy, but you know, it's the 1560s.
They didn't know nothing about nothing.
No, medical advancement was stagnant. And back then, symptoms relating to epilepsy were diagnosed as falling sickness, and treatments included rubbing blood of a non-sufferer on the lips of an epileptic, or giving the epileptic a mix of a non-sufferer's blood and a piece of their skull as the episode ended.
I don't think it worked real well, but they gave it a shot.
Let me just go up to someone having a seizure and rub my blood on them.
Hang on, I got you.
Okay, you want a piece of my skull? By the age of 11, she was considered extremely beautiful. She was
a little creepy.
Yeah, at 11, but I guess back then they were getting married at like 12.
Which is also a little creepy.
And I guess they did not have very long lifespans either. And she was also known as well educated, but she was subjected to a lot of brutality. Not her, but like her seeing it. When she was 6, she watched a public execution, and she would routinely watch the servants get beat, because back then that was considered normal to beat your servants. Disrespectful. Allegedly, when she was 13, she gave birth to an illegitimate child, which means that she was not married or like dating this person. It is said the child was fathered by a peasant boy, which back then is an absolute no-no. Like,
disgraceful.
yes, if you are up here, you cannot be with someone down here, or even someone down here. You gotta stay up here.
No fraternizing with the help.
It is said that the baby was given to a woman that the family really trusted, and she took it away. Just took it away. They also paid her. And the location that the woman allegedly took this baby to was Wallachia, which is an area in present-day Romania. Now, after Elizabeth died, way after she died, is when the rumors of this illegitimate child came up. They weren't while she was alive, so people don't know whether there is any validity to this. It didn't start getting told until after she was dead, well after she was dead, so...
It's kind of hard to get proof of something like that long ago. You'd be like, yeah, this lady over here said she knew him. It was long ago.
My ancestors have proof.
In 1573, at the age of 13, Elizabeth became engaged to Count Ferenc Nadasdy, and he was 18.
And that's I know that back then it was probably normal, but that is just so weird. Because today, you see an 18-year-old with a 13-year-old, you are calling the cops.
For real.
Back then, it was literally socially normal, and I don't understand.
He was a member of the Nadasdy family. He was the son of Baron Tomas Nadasdy de Nadast et Fargasfold and Orsolia Canasai. The marriage was a political arrangement within the circles of the aristocracy. On May 8th of 1575, Elizabeth and Count Ferenc got married at the Palace of Verano, today Veron nad Toplu, Slovakia. This marriage resulted in combined land ownership in Transylvania and the Kingdom of Hungary.
So then, like I was saying, like if you're of a high social rank, you want to marry into another high social rank,
Yeah.
literally because of the land and the power that you get.
Then you have like your one powerful family, and then you marry into another, and then you're twice as powerful and own twice as many things. Her husband's gift to her was his household castle of Shesti in Little Carpathians, present-day Nove Mesto nad Voham and Trenčín, Slovakia. After the wedding, they lived in his castle at Savar. In 1578, 3 years into their marriage, Nadasdy became the chief commander of the Hungarian troops and led them to war against the Ottomans.
Oh wow, he's leading them to war against furniture.
Elizabeth managed business affairs and the family's multiple estates during the war. This caused them to spend most of their marriage apart, but he may have schooled her in techniques of torture when they did spend time together. See, the only time you hang out is when you're teaching your wife to torture people.
Ruh-roh.
Good times, actually. Elizabeth's Aunt Clara had introduced her to orgies and a shadowy circle of people who were considered to be sorcerers, witches, and alchemists.
They've been reading too many dark romances.
Who would do such a thing as that? In 1585, their daughter Anna Nadasdy was born and later to become the wife of Nicola VI Zrinski. Elizabeth ended up giving birth to 5 children, not counting that one that we don't know if they existed or not. 2 died as infants, but 2 daughters and a son survived. On January 4th, 1604, Ferenc Nadasdy died at the age of 48, which is probably pretty old at that.
Yeah, that was
for
probably
them.
considered ancient.
The exact cause of death is unknown, but it seems to have started in 1601 and initially caused debilitating pain in his legs. Probably had like blood clots or something, and they just probably just didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
They didn't have all the fancy technology. He never fully recovered. In 1603, he became permanently disabled. He was married to Elizabeth for 29 years.
That is such a short period of time.
I wonder if he had, like, rheumatoid arthritis. Before dying, he entrusted his heirs and widow to Georgi Thurzo, who would eventually lead the investigation into Elizabeth's crimes.
The accusation of crimes. Between 1602 and 1604, after rumors of Elizabeth's atrocities had spread throughout the kingdom, Lutheran minister Istvan Magyari made complaints against her publicly and at the court in Vienna.
You read that very matter-of-factly.
I was trying real hard not to mess up. In 1610, Matthias II, King of Hungary, assigned Georgi Thurzo, who oversaw matters as the Lord Palatine of Hungary, to investigate what was going on, because there had been dozens and dozens of suspicious deaths and disappearances. And this was all around in Countess. Do not know if I said that right. I most likely didn't. He ordered 2 notaries to start collecting evidence in March. By October of 1610, they had collected 52 witness statements. And I feel like that's kind of a lot back then. I don't know. And then by 1611, a year later, the number of witness statements was over 300. Now that's a lot. Elizabeth is said to have begun killing daughters of the lesser gentry that had been sent to her gymnasium by their parents to learn country etiquette. Because back then that was a thing. You had to go learn etiquette. Did I say that word right? Gymnasium? Gymnasium? Collaborators in court had mentioned the usage of needles, but there were many suspected forms of torture used by Elizabeth. Some witnesses named their relatives who had died at the gymnasium. Others reported seeing traces of torture on dead bodies. Some were buried in graveyards, others in unmarked locations. And some of the victims were covered in honey and left outside for the bugs to come and eat them. During the cold months of the year, the young women might be stripped naked and forced into deadly ice baths. Hypothermia who? Some had needles driven into their fingers, cutting their noses or lips, or whipping them with stinging nettles.
Not the nettles.
This part's odd. Elizabeth would bite shoulders and breasts, along with burning the flesh, including the genitals.
It's like a fucking piranha over here.
Some believe the nature of these attacks suggests a sexual motivation, but nobody knows for sure, because she's out there biting titties.
I don't need a guard dog, I am a guard dog.
Woof woof. There were accusations of Elizabeth bathing in the blood of virgin victims in an attempt to recapture her lost youth. This rumor has no credible evidence or any witness statements to back that up, but I don't know if she's trying to be like Bloody Mary, or if Bloody Mary was even a thing. The first mention of the bloodbaths didn't come around until 100 years after her death, so like with her getting pregnant at 13, no one knows for sure.
Can't imagine going, let me just go get in a tub full of blood.
Yeah.
On New Year's Eve, 1612, Elizabeth was arrested along with 4 of her servants that were accused of being her accomplices at Chesty Castle. Servants were Dorotia Semtes, Iano Joe, Katerina Banika, and Janos Ujvari.
Something like that.
Somewhere in the vicinity of those names. In a letter Thurzo sent his wife, his unannounced visit found one girl dead and another living prey girl in the castle. There was no evidence that they asked her what had happened to her. One rumor is that Elizabeth had been caught in the act of torturing somebody, but in reality she was just having dinner.
This man liked to exaggerate his findings, if you can't tell. Yeah, I caught her. She was torturing somebody.
She's like, I was just trying to eat my meatballs. Thurzo told the guests and the villagers that he had caught her red-handed, but she was arrested and detained prior to seeing the victims. Elizabeth's family ruled Transylvania and wanted to avoid the loss of her property, which was at risk of being seized from the public scandal.
Ooh, scandalous.
Scandalous. She was originally going to go to a nunnery, But as the stories of what she had done spread around, they decided to keep her under house arrest. Witnesses testified that they had only heard the accusations from others and didn't actually see firsthand.
So, like, no one saw her actually doing this. So, was it true? Is it not true?
It's a game of telephone.
It was like 9,000 years ago.
The servants confessed under torture, which...
But the,
If you're being tortured, I would assume you're just gonna say whatever you can to get them to knock it off.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, she was torturing people. They were the king's witnesses and were executed. 2 were burned alive and 1 was beheaded. Katerina got a life sentence after evidence showed that she had been abused by the other women. Another woman who had allegedly used magic to aid Elizabeth was also killed. A witch! These accusations of murder were based on rumors. There is no documents to prove that anyone in the area complained about the Countess. During this time period, if there was a complaint about somebody, even for the smallest reason, a letter was written about it. 2 trials were held, the first on January 2nd, 1611, and the second on January 7th, 1611. During the trial, the highest number of victims cited was 650, but the number comes from a servant girl named Susanna, who had seen the number in one of Elizabeth's private books. The book was never revealed or mentioned in the testimony.
so there's literally all of these things for proof, but
But nobody has it.
no one has it.
Where is it?
There's no evidence brought to court.
Which nowadays, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You gotta have substantial evidence for things.
Like Terrence Shannon Jr.
Like, too many people get away with things because they're like, oh, what do they call it? Circumstantial evidence or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
Where they're like, nope, sorry.
On January 25th, 1611, Thurzo wrote a letter to King Matthias saying they had captured Elizabeth and had her confined to her castle. Thurzo wrote that Elizabeth was locked in a brick room, but other sources, which were written documents from the priest that went to the castle, have said she was able to move freely throughout her castle, more like being on house arrest. And since Elizabeth was a lady from a powerful family, she was not put on trial. You know, you're powerful, you get out of everything. But she was isolated in her castle. So basically she was just not allowed to leave her castle instead of going to jail. She remained there until her death in 1614 at the age of 54, which I feel like that's quite old for back then. On August 20th, 1614, Elizabeth had complained of her hands being cold to her bodyguard. And he replied, "It's nothing, mistress, just go lie down." So she did, and she died. They went to go get her the next morning and found that she was dead. On November 25th, 1614, she was buried in the Church of Shesti. According to some sources, the villagers caused such an uproar over the fact that she was buried right there, to the point where they removed her body, they exhumed it, and moved it somewhere else. And it is said that it is at her birth home in Esid in the Bathory family crypt. The exact location of her body is unknown, but it is believed that she is buried deep below the church and never to be seen again.
It has been debated on how factual this actually was. Because,
Of course.
honestly. Anybody could have just made up anything back then and then just been like, yep, this is what happened. Okay, I guess. Of 289 witness accounts, over 250 offered either hearsay or no information whatsoever.
Which is not helpful at all.
Precisely. So that leaves like less than 40 people that actually had any sort of information.
If they even did at all.
Many witnesses who spoke against Elizabeth were beholden to Thurzo. So, him and his buddies.
Yeah. It sounds like this guy's just telling stories.
Yeah, really. The fact that the servants were tortured to get information makes their statements unreliable. It is unlikely that Elizabeth was 100% innocent. I don't think any royalty was probably 100% innocent back then.
No. And especially, even now, like, you don't know what goes on.
Because if you are of, like, high power and you know that nothing can touch you, like, you cannot get in trouble, you're not going to be put to death.
Boo! Like, even with the rumors of the royal family back in the 1900s kidnapping children, like...
Yeah, nothing comes of anything that they do because they're untouchable.
Yeah.
Blah.
And because they know that they're untouchable, they can literally get away with doing whatever they want, and that's what they do.
Especially back then, when they're... Like, I feel like you probably could have got away with just about anything at that point, especially if you were royalty.
Because you would have to have legit, undeniable evidence, and you would have to have a massive amount of it. And even then, that might not be enough.
In 1602, a priest wrote a letter that discussed the excessive cruelty exhibited by Elizabeth and her husband towards their servants.
Still blows my mind how that was just normal back then.
That was probably every royal family back then, because they didn't have any reason to treat people properly unless they had some sort of moral compass, but it doesn't seem like a lot of them did.
No.
Treating the servants poorly wasn't illegal at the time. They were the higher power.
Yeah, it wasn't illegal. So they're just like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, but like, that makes you a shitty human.
The only reason Elizabeth was punished was because her victims were said to have included noble women.
Power, you don't hurt other power.
The crumbled remains of her castle are now a tourist attraction, so it still stands.
We might have to go and get a lesson on how to say all this shit.
Like the kind of shit that they built back then and it lasted this long.
And then
We could build a house now and it wouldn't last, well, 100, 200 years tops.
No. I hope you liked this video. We have a whole playlist of serial killers if you want to see more. More put together videos that are English, like Gacy, Dahmer, Bundy, Son of Sam, Eileen Wuornos.
They're not that much more put together.
No, but they're in English. We can speak better about them.
Michael, I am gonna need you to take it down a notch.
These walls are thin. I wonder if he ever just hears like us be like, gonorrhea. He's like, the fuck are they talking about?
I'm a piranha.
So we will see you in the next video. Whenever.
As long as this one doesn't corrupt.
Hopefully it doesn't. I will literally throw myself out the window.
We'll just be done. No more Elizabeth Bathory.
No more. She's cursed. So